Welcome into the NBA Morning Deuce. Week 1 of the NBA is in the books. Five unbeaten teams remaining, and it's the 5 teams we all assumed would be the 5 unbeaten teams remaining in the NBA after 1 week of NBA action. The Cavs, the Magic, the Hawks, the Pacers, and the 1-0 Thunder.
Oh, you're counting the Timberwolves as not undefeated still?
Yeah, well, we are recording this at midnight on the East Coast, and at midnight on the East Coast, the Timberwolves are losing 107-71. It's the final game of this Sunday night slate. Holiday weekend. Hope everybody had a great Christmas break, holiday break, 4-day weekend. Whatever you celebrate, you should have had 4 days off, or 4 days to do what I did, which was drink and eat a lot and sleep a lot. I don't know what you did.
I checked all 3 of those boxes.
And watch a lot of football and basketball.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it was a perfect weekend.
Can you tell if this hat is way too small, Joey, for our YouTube viewers?
It didn't strike me as it, but now that you say it, it might be a little small.
It's not the hat really is the issue. It's just I have a gigantic head. But let's get into it. I'm just checking.
Okay, all right. Well, so today, and maybe we'll do this on a weekly basis. I've seen some other shows do this, so this is not like an original content idea. But today we're going to do our week 1, our overreactions from the first week of the NBA season. And maybe if it goes well, we'll do it like a weekly, like what are you overreacting to from this week? So I think that's what we're going to do tonight. I mean, first we have to go through, we'll quickly just go through the Sunday. There was a lot of games today. I'm going to reel off the scores real quick for anybody who missed any of them. We're only going to probably hit a few of these games. The Magic stayed undefeated. They beat the Wizards without Westbrook. Pelicans beat the Spurs by 3. Cavs beat the Sixers. Boston lost to the Pacers. Warriors lost to the Bulls, which we'll get into a little bit. Phoenix beat the Kings. We probably won't talk about that game very much. Brooklyn lost to Charlotte, and as I mentioned, the Lakers are beating the shit out of the T-Wolves right now. But I think the game, it doesn't even seem like it was on Sunday because it was in the middle of the day. It was so long ago, and there's so much that's happened since then. But I think the game we can start with is the Clippers. Like,
can you call it a game? It was the 2 teams were on the court, but it was.
Clippers lost 124-73 to the Dallas Mavericks. It's well established. I worked in the NBA for 6 years. I worked for arguably the worst team to ever play basketball. We won 7 games. I don't think we ever lost by 50. And I can tell you this, I'm pretty sure we didn't score 27 points in one half and be down 50 at half. They were down 77-27 at halftime. They scored whatever order it was, 14 points and 13 points in the first and second quarter. I don't know which way it went. Now, Kawhi Leonard didn't play. And people, I maybe will point to that. But and this is an overreaction episode, and I'm not going to overreact to the third game of the season. But what I will say, if I was overreacting, was this is what a losing team does. Like, this is not what a championship team doesn't lose by 50 at home. I don't care who's missing from you. Paul George and Kawhi could be out. I mean, the Mavs are missing their second best player too. You don't lose by 50 points. It's an embarrassment. You said, I think the halftime score was definitely a record.
Yeah, that was a record. It was 50 at halftime.
And then obviously still losing by 51 to be exact that's just, I mean, again, no Kawhi, third game of the season, but still unacceptable. It's hard to even fathom.
Like, all right, since this is an overreaction episode, I'm going to toss one out there. Like, does this have Ty Lue in a little bit of hot water? To lose by 50 in the third game of the season it's just unacceptable to me. I like, you talk about teams like this team doesn't have any quit in them. Like, Clippers have some quit, and they quit. They flat out quit on this game. And that's bad.
Yeah, but I mean, they beat the Lakers. They beat the Nuggets. like if they had lost their first 2 games and then this happened, people would be like, did they already quit on Ty Lue? But this is just such a weird one-off thing. Like, I don't understand how this happens. Again, I've been a part of some pretty awful teams, and I've seen some really bad losses. We probably did lose by 50 at least once or twice in that 7-win season, but we didn't have Paul George or Lou Will or really anybody that was on
You
this
weren't in
team.
the luxury tax and like expected to win a title or contend for one.
So that's just what an absurd. There's really not a whole lot to say. There's no like breaking the game down. They were 4 for 33 from three, and the only player that started that made a three was Luke Kennard. Everybody else went 0 from three in their starting lineup. It's just embarrassing.
I think it. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And
Some
again,
people
like,
try to explain it away as an anomaly or like they didn't have Kawhi, but it isn't. It's flat out embarrassing.
well, yeah, and it's a loser's mentality. Like you don't. It is just one game, and it's not going to impact them being one of the higher seeds in the West, being in the playoffs. It won't impact the bottom line at the end, but it does tell you a lot about a team to get absolutely pounded like that at home at any point. I don't care. Yeah. Time of the day, whatever. It's just crazy when you're supposed to be that talented. Like if you're that talented, one player missing, even if he's your best player, shouldn't impact you like that.
Agreed.
Speaking of getting pounded, the Bucks get pounded by. I mean, this is gonna be a lot of people getting pounded. I got 4 games that we're gonna talk about, and then we'll go on to our overreactions. The Bucks. This one's a little more concerning to me. And we probably don't need to get into it too much because this also will tie into one of your overreactions, unless you want to just do this overreaction for you right now.
Yeah, let's just integrate them if you want.
So the Bucks lose by 20 to the Knicks. They shot 7 of 18 from 3. They only took 18 threes, which is kind of crazy. 7 of 18 from 3. Giannis finished with 22 points, 1 of 6 from 3, and Drew Holiday only had 8 points. Again, only the 3rd game of the season, but it's not like they looked great in the first few games. They looked okay. Like Chris Middleton's looked great.
Yeah.
And he played pretty good again today, I think. But like as a team, I think there are still people questioning whether they got better or not. And again, like the Knicks stink, and they're well coached. But 130 from the Knicks scored 130 points. That's very concerning.
Yeah. The Knicks do stink. There's no doubt about that. Like I know it's early and it's a fresh start for a bunch of teams. The Knicks are bad.
They were missing Obi Toppin and Emmanuel Quickly, too, which is their two first-round picks.
Good rookies, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's a 20-point loss. It's not like a sound the alarm thing for the Bucks. Like the Bucks are still going to win a bunch of games this year.
Nothing at this point is
right. But for me, just to get my overreaction in there, like Giannis's big issue, not being able to shoot the ball and not being able to score at all 3 levels, is still a huge issue. And we didn't expect it to get corrected in one off season. But like I've seen Milwaukee play a couple times. The shot is ugly. It still is. It's not how you win 7-game series when your best player can't score at all 3 levels. Like, and not even he doesn't even have to be like dominant in extending the floor. He just has to be effective, I guess. I have real concerns about the Bucks in the playoffs, not the regular season, but in the playoffs.
Yeah, and you said like you don't expect it to. They're 1-2 now. Like, it's interesting is that I think I brought this up at one point in the offseason, which was, are they going to start the season slow, and then Budenholzer gets fired, and then they go on their run and still finish with a really good record. I know it's only 3 games. They're 1-2. They just got pounded out by the Knicks. Maybe that's where maybe it's going to trend that way. And to your Giannis point, I don't think it's I don't think it's an overreaction.
Right.
Like it's not really that much of an overreaction to because it's true. I mean, he can't shoot. And also, yeah, it doesn't take one offseason to fix your shot, but he's also not young.
Yeah.
I mean, he is, what is he, 26?
He's 26, so he's been
at
in the
some
league
point
for so many years.
Right, at some point in your career, you get to a point where it just isn't fixable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it is a
And
huge concern.
It's just
Who'd
so
they lose
ugly.
to? They lost to the Knicks and
I'll
was
tell
it?
you in
Did
one
they lose to the
second.
Celtics?
The Celtics in the first game with that wild ending.
Right. So, and then the Celtics lost tonight to the Pacers. So, the Celtics have some questions. Like Celtics not at full strength against the Bucks and beat the Bucks, no Kemba. And obviously Kemba is impacting them because, they shouldn't lose to the Pacers at this point in the year. The Pacers are not great. They're okay. They're not
I will
great.
say,
So
I watched that fourth quarter. The Pacers' defense was fantastic in that fourth quarter.
they're a solid team.
Yeah.
But we have, I mean, we're pretty high on the Celtics. So,
Yeah, definitely.
and coming off beating the Bucks, and then now the Celtics are 1-2. So yeah, that's fair. It's a fair one. I would say that I agree with you, but I also don't know that it's a huge I don't think like as an overreaction topic, people would be like, no, you're wrong. He got better.
Yeah, it's true.
You know what I mean?
I guess maybe it's not an overreaction, but it's like
Well, your overreaction is that it's hugely concerning to the playoffs. And it's
yeah,
only
like
the third game.
I'm pointing out a glaring flaw in the back-to-back MVP. So it's just kind of like counter. He's a great player, but
that it is going to impact them in the playoffs.
Yeah,
after 3 games,
it's gonna be a huge issue.
Yep. I'm with you. I agree. I mean, I think we've been on the same page with that for a while.
Yeah.
All right. Your boys got blown out by the Cavs, but you didn't have Embiid. You watched this whole game. So
yeah,
this was another one of your overreactions, but it was about the Cavs.
Yeah. I think the Cavs are half decent in terms of a regular season. Yeah. And it's because we know Kevin Love and Andre Drummond are like very, very solid, way above average NBA players.
This was Love's first game, I think.
He played 15 minutes in the previous game and 9 tonight, so he's still not all the way back. But we knew there was a solid front court. Their back court is taking a leap. Like Garland and Sexton are good players, and they're super young. And then they have some juice off the bench, like Jetty Osmond, Dante Exum got 23 minutes, and like he's not getting like.
I would say I think it's a huge deal that they're able to bring Osmond off the bench.
Yeah.
Like he's a good player. He just was probably never your ceiling was never going to be very high with him as your starting 3. Mm-hmm. But he's a really good role player off the bench.
So here's the overreaction part of it. I think they have a shot at the 8 seed after 3 games. And
that
is contingent on Kevin Love being healthy for sure. If Kevin Love's healthy and the rest of the team stays healthy, I think their backcourt is ready to take a big enough leap where they're an 8 seed. I mean, I was looking at, or at least in contention for it. You've got a wry smile on your face. You think that one maybe is too much of an overreaction?
No, I mean that's what overreactions are meant to be. I don't. They haven't played anybody, right? Like they
played the Sixers,
right? But the Sixers without Embiid, and then they beat the Pistons. I don't remember who else they beat, but they beat the Pistons,
the Hornets in game 1,
and the Hornets. The Hornets beat the Nets. You know what? I think it. Yeah, I don't know that I don't know that I can get on board with this just yet. So that's definitely a big overreaction. I will say they are definitely, after watching them in their first 2 games, I didn't watch this one. They're definitely more talented than I thought. Garland has made a huge leap. Mm-hmm. Like watching Garland last year, I didn't even think he was an NBA player. Now he actually looks pretty good.
Yeah, he's solid.
And Sexton's shot looks really good. So yeah, that's a decent, pretty good backcourt. Drummond looks like he's potentially going to be like a defensive player of the year candidate this year. He's on a tear already. And Okaro looks really good. Yeah, they're talented.
We didn't even mention Larry Nance is a solid player. I mean, he's not going to move the needle. He's a solid player.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom of that 8 seed in the East is probably going to be up for grabs all year. I don't know that there's a team that's locked in there.
I'd even lump the 7 seed in there. Like the 7 and 8 seed are wide open for like 6 or 7 teams. And I was not counting the Cavs as one of those teams until tonight.
Well, part of the reason for that might be one of my overreactions, which we'll talk about in a few.
Which I think I also agree with.
Yeah. All right. Last game from tonight was Brooklyn, and I watched this game. Brooklyn lost by 2 to Charlotte. And And I'll go. Here's my first overreaction from the first week. Despite this loss, despite losing this game, the Nets are the best team in the East. Having watched every team now in the Eastern Conference, they're too good. They have too much talent. Kevin Durant's too good. Like it just there's no one else. I don't care if Giannis is back-to-back MVP. I love Jimmy Butler. What he did in the playoffs was incredible. But I love Tatum and Jaylen Brown both have all NBA potential and could be and will be stars and probably kind of are. None of them are KD. There's nothing like KD. Really, outside of LeBron, there's nothing like him in the NBA. Like, he just changes the whole dynamic. And him being healthy and looking the way he looks, they're the best team in the East. It's not by a wide margin, maybe, because there are some questions defensively. Although, they only gave up 106 points. Their issue in the game against the Hornets today on Sunday was scoring the ball. They were really cold in the first half. They didn't shoot the ball well. But there's something about the way they're built, at least offensively, when I watch them, where I'm like, they're probably the closest thing to what the Warriors were when the Warriors were at their best offensively. They don't have a Draymond Green who anchors your defense, but Jared Allen looks really good. DeAndre Jordan's solid. They switch 1 through 4 and sometimes 1 through 5 when Jared Allen's in there. They gave up 64 points in the paint to the Hornets, which is one of my major concerns. Like that can't happen. But ultimately, when it came down to it at the end of the game, they seem like a lot of times we'll see them play down to competition this year and then turn it on when they need to. Mm-hmm. But there was never a point in that game, and that's even like with 7 minutes or 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, they were down 16. And I was like, they're going to win this game. Mm-hmm. Like, there was never a point where I was like, they're not going to win this game. And then they cut it to 2. And that's where my only other concern with the Nets comes in, is that down 2 with the ball with 30 seconds left, Kevin Durant never touched the ball. Kyrie took it.
That's insane.
And went to the rim and got blocked. That is, if there's going to be a concern with this team, that could be a concern down the line when they play close games against better teams. But ultimately, at least in the regular season, they're not going to have a lot of close games. Like, these games, I don't think are going to happen a ton. They're going to beat the brakes off of a lot of teams. Charlotte, fun young team, a lot of talent, like young talent. They play fast. Like they push it on makes and misses. Terry Rozier's playing out of his mind. Looks like a totally like different player. Dunked on Kevin Durant so hard. Like
really?
Poster dunk in his face. KD fell like on his back. It was nuts. But despite all that, they only lost by 2 points. They were down 16 in the fourth quarter with 6 minutes left. They lost by 2. And Steve Nash has only coached 3 NBA games. Like they're the best. To me, it's probably an overreaction, but I think they're the best team in the East.
All right, so I would call that an overreaction if you had said by a wide margin. But you clarified, you said not by a wide margin. But I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue they're not the best team in the East because of Durant's health. But there are like Boston, Miami, Milwaukee. Like those are really, really, really good teams. So it's not
like the East is really good.
Yeah, it's not like the Nets are head and shoulders above everybody else. And I'm not ready to. Maybe I am. I don't know, but I don't think that's a wild overreaction.
Kevin, he's just everything's so easy. Like,
yeah,
that's why like they're down 16, and I'm just like every time he touches the. I think you mentioned this last time, on the last time we reacted to one of their games. Every time he touches the ball and every time he shoots, it's like it looks like
a good shot.
It's going
like,
in.
Yeah,
like there's you never it reminds me a little bit of Larry Bird and Dirk. Like every time one of those guys, if you go back and watch games like Larry Bird back in the day, or if you go back and watch Dirk, they never shot a shot that didn't look like it was going in.
Right.
And that's kind of what KD has with him. Like every shot, even at the end of the game, he had another chance. Bismack Biyombo, incredible closeout, great defense, but he had a chance. It was a mid-range, like 15-foot jumper that he just rimmed out. He had a chance. But it looked good the whole way. Like he never takes a shot where you're like, that's not going in.
And the most incredible thing is, like, this guy just missed a whole year, and then we've been in COVID, so it's not like he can play pickup every day.
I know.
Like, this dude's probably not even totally in rhythm yet in terms of the speed of the game. Like, I mean, I know he's not. I mean, he's feeling it. Like, he's but I wouldn't say he's at 100% like peaking right now because he hasn't played basketball in a year.
Now, I will say, not that this would change my overreaction, but Spencer Dinwiddie did have a non-contact knee injury that they say is a knee strain. It'll be reevaluated tomorrow, but they showed the replay like 3 times. No one hit him. Nothing happened. He planted wrong, and then he had to leave the game and never came back. And if that is serious, which you never know with a non-contact injury, it could be serious. Yeah. That would be a big hit to them. But they're so loaded. I still think they'd be the best team in the East.
That would not be like detrimental, but that would really suck.
The way it would hurt is, well, you know what I think would happen? You know who I think might go into their starting lineup?
Karis LeVert or Luwawu?
Yeah.
Really?
He played most of the fourth quarter, and he hit a bunch of big shots.
Yeah, that
and
dude.
Every time he plays, he makes big shots.
Mm-hmm. He's so goddamn athletic. He's just like still a little bit raw, it looks like, but he's polishing his game up a little bit, and like I just feel like he hasn't hit his ceiling yet. He's only 25.
Yeah. Part of what makes them great is that Karis LeVert comes off the bench, so they can have situations where KD and Kyrie don't play for long stretches, and it's not concerning because Karis LeVert's that good.
Yeah. And
I don't think they would want to put him in the starting lineup, so someone would have to come. Like it would probably be Landry Shamet, but it could be Luwawu Cabarrot because Landry Shamet. I think I don't have the box score pulled up, but I think at one point he was like 0 for 8 or 0 for 9.
He went 0 for 8. I have the box score. He was 0 for 8 today. So
yeah. So and Cabarrot came in and like was just gunning, and he hit some big shots in crunch time. So he's gonna get more run, especially if Shamet doesn't get off this slump because he hasn't looked good early in the year. But we'll see. I mean, the Dinwiddie injury it would suck if they lose him, but it wouldn't change my outlook right now. Katie's just too good.
Yeah.
Let's see. We already did 2 of your overreactions, right? Cleveland and Giannis.
Yes. Yep.
All right. My second overreaction from the week is sort of goes the opposite way. So the Warriors beat the Bulls on a buzzer beater tonight by Damian Lee. I think it was 129-128 was the final score. But despite that, I'm going to say this. Not only are the Warriors not a playoff team, I think they might be one of the worst teams in the NBA. They're really bad. And part of it is, look, maybe Kelly Oubre can't be as bad as he's playing right now. He is 7 of 40 from the field, 0 for 17 from 3, and 1 for 34 on non-dunks, which means 6 of his 7 field goals so far have been dunks. Andrew Wiggins looks lost, even though he's playing a little better, actually, at least if like scoring wise. But there was a point down 2 today, down 2 in the game, drives from the wing, misses a wide open layup, and then misses 2 point blank putbacks. And luckily, Kevin Looney was there and got it and tied the game. Like those two guys look so bad. And Steph doesn't look good either, by the way. Like Steph had a decent game today, but shooting wise, 11 of 25 is okay. 5 of 15 is okay. He had 36, but Steph doesn't look very good either. And I know they're missing Draymond, but I don't think Draymond is going to make that big of a difference. This team, particularly when Steph is not on the floor, this team is awful. And we've talked about it a few times, but man, it took every ounce of what they had in them to beat the Bulls, who, by the way, are not very good either, but they're super young. Like, they could be good eventually. I didn't think they were going to be good, but the Bulls are not very good. And then you could see in the reaction when Damian Lee hit that 3, their whole bench came running out to midcourt. They were jumping on each other, celebrating. Like, it looked like they just won a championship.
Yeah.
Like, that to me signals a team that kind of knows what they are. Like, if they're celebrating that much for a win in the 3rd game of the season, like, I get it. It's a game winner, buzzer beater. It's cool. But the way they were celebrating was like, all right, we're not going to get a lot of these this year, boys, so we better celebrate when we can.
I am hoping that reaction was because it was Damian Lee, who's like, this like very unheralded player. Like he's kind of the last guy on the roster you think would drill a game winner. So maybe they're all super fired up because their boy hit this unlikely game winner. But Jesus, this is actually in my overreactions.
That's true.
Just how unbelievably wrong I was about both of these teams, the Warriors and the Bulls. But hear me out. I think it is too much of an overreaction to say the Warriors are one of the worst teams in the league until we see Draymond back. Draymond can make this team okay.
Defensively, maybe they'll be better defensively.
Well, they'll definitely be better defensively, right?
But Draymond is a limited offensive player, so I'm not sure how he makes them better offensively.
He's a better passer than anybody they have in there now besides Curry. So that'll help.
Passing to guys who can't make shots.
We got to see what Draymond does here before we label them one of the worst teams in the league.
But here's my thing with Draymond, at least offensively. It's not like bringing Draymond back makes scoring easier for Oubre and Wiggins, because it's not like he's like impacting the spacing.
Yeah.
So it just now Wiseman's very good. If
Still
Wiseman maybe, I don't know if there's some way Wiseman, Curry, and Draymond become like, some type of weird big three and go and get it together and have like this chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that could happen because Wiseman is very good and much better than I thought already, like so quickly. But they stink, and they have the worst bench in the NBA. And you could argue, and anybody can anybody can try to come argue that with me.
Look at the team they just played. The Bulls might have a worse bench. The Bulls bench is horrible.
Otto Porter and Thomas Satoransky are better than any two players that the Warriors have on their bench.
I don't like Satoransky very much, but
That's fine. He's still a better player than any two players. He's better than Brad Wanamaker. I know Brad Wanamaker had a good playoffs. Tom Satoransky's better than Brad Wanamaker. Like their bench, the Warriors bench is the worst bench in the NBA. It's so bad. Hold on. I got to pull up the box score because now I don't even remember who's on their bench. They're so bad. It's horrendous. It's Kevin Looney, Michael Mulder, who I didn't even know was an NBA player until these last couple games. Jordan Poole, Eric Paschall, Damian Lee, Brad Wanamaker, and Eric Paschall is only off the bench now because he lost his spot in the starting lineup to Juan Toscano Anderson. Like, what are we talking about here? It's
bad. It's bad.
It's bad. And yes, Draymond will make a difference. He's not making a difference for this team making the playoffs. This team ain't making the playoffs.
Ooh, okay.
You're probably right. You're probably right that saying they're one of the worst teams in the league is an overreaction. That's why it's an overreaction. But even when I wrote Warriors are not a playoff team in the overreactions, I didn't think it was an overreaction. They're bad. They're bad.
My tail is like between my legs right now because I was just so high on the Warriors and I was so high on this Steph Curry revenge tour. So I'm just trying to hold out. Give me 5 games with Draymond in the lineup before I fully eat crow and I'm like, okay, this team's fully dog shit. But right now, they're bad, really bad.
Oh, yes,
I don't know how else to put it.
They are bad.
It's tough to watch. And the last 5 minutes of this game was brutal.
You know what was amazing? Steph took his braids out. And then the Warriors released that video where he made 105 threes in a row. And everyone was freaking out. Let me explain something. And then I was on like a Zoom call with my brother and some other buddies yesterday because someone mentioned that video. Let me explain something about that video. I'm not going to dog Steph Curry. Like 105 threes in a row is incredible, right? Mm-hmm. When I was in Charlotte, we had a guy named Brian Roberts. I don't even know do you even remember Brian Roberts?
Brian Roberts to me is a second baseman for the Orioles from a while ago.
We had a point guard named Brian Roberts. He was our backup point guard. He wasn't, for an NBA player, he didn't play a lot. I used to rebound for him every day after practice. Every day. And every day, the first thing we would do, or one of the first things we would do is he would just go around the 3-point line. I would rebound. I would count in my head and how many he made in a row. And then I would count like how many he made out of whatever. So like 50 out of 100 or whatever the number was. One day, he made 74 in a row on the move. on the move.
Right. Yeah,
after
not
every
sweating.
shot, he moved to a new spot. He made 74 in a row. Steph made 105 in the same spot. Again, not shitting on him. I'm just saying NBA players are fucking amazing. Like, this is what, in an open gym with nobody guarding you, everyone was like, Steph's back. Steph's back. He made 105 in a row.
Yeah.
He had a good game, but this team's bad. This team is not good.
I totally missed that whole thing. I mean, it's funny. Like, he lets his braids go. Like, maybe his braids are too tight. Like, I get the gist of it, the joke, like why it would go viral on Twitter and stuff. But yeah, Steph Curry's hit 105 threes in a row probably like 50 times in his life. You know what I mean? Like, like, come on.
Yeah. So that's it. Another team. I'll give you another overreaction about a bad team. And I think you're going to be right there with me on this one. We were right about the Raptors. This is not a play.
Feels good to be right.
This team is not a playoff team. And this is part of the reason why maybe 2 playoff spots could be open in the East, because this team's not very good. They actually, I guess if they didn't have Norman Powell, they could probably be in competition for the worst bench in the NBA. This team is, and here's what's crazy about the Raptors. They used to be their whole thing used to be their bench, like their depth. Like they had remember there was like the bench mob. It was like 2 or 3 years ago. I think before they got Kawhi, they had all these great bench players, and then even with Kawhi, you know, like Fred VanVleet was coming off the bench, and because Danny Green was there, and they had good players. Their bench has gotten worse every year, and now it's just awful, and it's even more so because of the loss of Ibaka and Marc Gasol. They're going to be a bad defensive team this year because of that. Like, they're playing Aaron Baines and Chris Boucher a ton of minutes. They got beat down by the Pelicans in the first game. Then they lost 119-114 to San Antonio in their second game. And the only reason they were that close is because Chris Boucher had 22 points. If the water boy is getting you 22 points a game and you can't win, you're in trouble. That's a bad team. I think it might be a bad team.
They don't look good, and the problem is it's scoring. Like, Fred VanVleet can't be your leading scorer. Like, Siakam has to be.
First game he had 9 points. Second game he had 27. That's how it's going to go all year.
Yeah, I mean, Pascal Siakam, he stuffs the stat sheet. He really does. Like, he plays hard and everything. He's just not the scorer I think they paid him to be, and that's a pretty big problem for them. I don't know. OG Anunoby with 10 points again. Like, this is against the Spurs I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Like, they don't have any firepower. They just don't have it. Yeah. Unless Fred VanVleet gets really hot.
And their defense is not going to be good.
Right.
Like, you can't count on Aaron Baines to be the anchor of your defense. You went from two former defensive players, no matter what their age is. By the way, Serge Ibaka looks great for the Clippers. Mm-hmm. And Marc Gasol tonight looks incredible for the Lakers. So no matter what about their age or what they look like in the playoffs, you're talking about 2 former Defensive Player of the Year candidates. Marc Gasol might have even won it one year. I believe he did.
I think he did. Yeah, he's got one. LeBron was pissed that Marc Gasol got one of his Defensive Player of the Year.
You go from those guys to, I love Aaron Baines. I love Aaron Baines. But he's like 36, dude. And he was never like a defensive stalwart. And then you got him and Chris Boucher. That's a problem. I don't think people. I don't know.
Not in like the cool way. Not like, oh, they're a problem.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like a problem. It's an issue. It's an issue.
It's an issue.
They're not a problem. They're an issue. Yeah. So I think we were right about the Raptors. Overreaction, by the way.
Overreaction. 3 games in.
This is an overreaction. 2 games in. They only played 2 games.
Right.
But overreaction. The Raptors are bad, and they're not. We were right that the Raptors are bad.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's completely fair. As long as we acknowledge that it could be an overreaction.
Right. I'm just going to run through my last 2 overreactions, and then we'll get to your last 2. Teams in the East that were interested in Harden and then suddenly became not interested in Harden should be interested in Harden.
Yeah, it was a long walk to get there, but
is that fair?
Yeah.
And they should be calling, and it should be done already. If you watched him in that first game against the Blazers without Eric Gordon, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, first game ever playing with Christian Wood, shorthanded. Half the team has COVID. He has 44-17.
Insane.
He is
44-17 is like a joke.
And if you're a team in the East, Miami,
Philly,
any of these teams, and you're watching Brooklyn right now, and I would be concerned. I would pull the trigger just from an offensive firepower standpoint. Like, being a great defensive team, like Miami's a great defensive team. Miami shoots the ball really well. They do a lot of things great, but eventually a team with the offensive firepower of the Nets can overwhelm you. It's going to be really hard to play 48 minutes of perfect defense against a team that has that many weapons. Mm-hmm. So you got to fight fire with fire at some point. And there just happens to be a guy who can go get you 44-17 and look like he's, out of shape.
Yeah. Dude, I didn't watch the game, but I was checking the box score all along, and I think he had like 9 assists like halfway through the second quarter. So like in my head, I was like, okay, this is what he's doing. He's gonna just like take the high road and get 20 assists in this game, right? And I check it later, and he put up 44, and it's like I was just laughing to myself. I'm like, this guy, I mean, he hasn't played basketball either. You know what I mean? Like he just steps in there cold. I mean, he played in one preseason game, right?
I think that
steps in
one.
cold, puts up 44-17 like it's absolutely nothing. Again, I keep coming back to it. Guys were not playing pickup basketball and organized basketball this summer. Like he just.
Oh, you don't think James Harden was playing pickup?
Well, he was playing pickup something, but I don't know.
You tried. You went for it.
The point is, like, if you're the Sixers, I'll tie this into one of my overreactions about Ben Simmons. Like, you got to trade Ben Simmons for James Harden yesterday. I mean, this is like, what are we even talking about here? Ben Simmons is a great defensive player.
I think you've got me. After seeing what they did against, who they lose to tonight again?
Cleveland.
After seeing what they did against Cleveland without Joel Embiid, dude,
this
it's
guy,
probably an overreaction, but I think you've gotten me turned
on board. Okay, thank you. Because I mean, Grant, I've watched a lot more Sixers than you, so it like
sure.
He's Ben Simmons is unbelievable on the fast break. He's a fantastic defender, but he is an absolute liability in half court offense. He doesn't help you. He doesn't stretch the floor. His passing is only really an asset on the move, like in fast break situations. So
right.
For Ben Simmons to be off the table for James Harden is like malpractice, honestly. And I don't think he is. I think the Rockets don't want him. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
But if he is, Rockets are interested in Ben Simmons, this trade should be done already. And I'm with you that like the Heat, Tyler Hero cannot be off the table. I know
no one's off the
on
table.
that.
There's really no. I don't.
Jaylen Brown. That's the tough one.
It's captive of the moment type of thing, right? Like we just saw Tyler Hero play great in the playoffs. I love Tyler Hero. I think he's an all-star at some point. And we just saw James Harden lose in the playoffs again. And now we see all this shit and we forget like he's James Harden.
Yeah.
You gotta make the deal. He's
a top 5 scorer of all time. Like, come on.
Yeah, you gotta make the deal. Especially if you're and here's the other thing. If you're a team in the East, you almost have to make the deal to make sure he doesn't end up in Brooklyn.
Yeah, because then you're basically punting on that's a wrap at that point if it happens. Yeah.
So but he's so good. He's so and the thing is like people could say whatever they want about all the things he's doing off the court, the distractions, the arguments in practice, this and that. He could also go out there and just play terrible and not try. Mm-hmm. Like there's something to be said about him going out and winning games for an organization or trying to win. They lost in overtime, but going out and trying to win. By the way, shout out to CJ McCollum in that game who was out of his mind. Also at 44. Yeah. Couldn't miss. But, there is something to be said about a guy who wants to be traded, hates his situation, doesn't want to be around his teammates, doesn't even want to be in Houston, but goes out and just does his job and carries a team of, outside of Christian Wood, pretty much a team of bums.
That one, yeah, the team they put on the floor.
Yeah. And PJ Tucker, to career high in assists. I mean,
I'd like to think like his agent got in his ear and was like, hey, James, like some teams are getting concerned like about all this off the court stuff. You know what I mean? And he's like, concerned about trading for me. Like, okay, hold on a second. Like, let me just put up 44 and 17, and then we can forget about all that. Like,
what made me really like love James Harden? There's a documentary on, it might have been Showtime, about the Drew League.
okay,
Or like all these guys that play pickup out in LA.
yeah,
And in one of the scenes, James Harden's playing against DeMar DeRozan, and there's some other, like a bunch of NBA guys playing, and Kobe shows up. And no one wants to guard Kobe, or no one wants to go at Kobe because it's Kobe. Like, they're like, oh, it's Kobe. And Harden's like, give me the fucking ball. And then him and Kobe just went at each other. And I'm like, all right, this dude's a killer. I mean, he's a killer.
Awesome.
I mean, it's just pickup, but it just shows the man. He's just like, no matter what he does, and it's another one of those things where it's like, we like media, which I guess technically, because we're on a podcast, we're considered media, fans, people in general. Like, we probably do overreact way too much to the shit these guys do, off the court and in their own personal lives. Because at the end of the day, if this guy's just going to go out there and get you 44 and 17, like, go to all the strip clubs, go to all the clubs. I mean, you should be wearing a mask. You should be social distance. Be safe. But if you're doing things safe, then go do your thing. If you're coming back, if you're tested negative, you're doing the protocols, all that stuff. Because think about this. Think about this also, right? James Harden is getting shitted on by the media. He's getting shitted on by everybody for going to a club and all this. Comes back, does his quarantine, gets his negative test, plays. Meanwhile, John Wall, Eric Gordon, Boogie, and other people all went to the same house to get haircuts. And they all have COVID. And they all have to quarantine and miss games. So who's the bad guy? Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of crazy the way things get spun.
Mm-hmm. But Kenny Smith had a fantastic point on one of the halftime shows. I forget for what game, but they're talking about like dysfunction and Harden, and he's like, "Who cares about dysfunction if you're winning?" Like, some of the best teams I was on were the most dysfunctional teams I was on. Like,
don't have to like each
other. It really
other.
doesn't matter what's going on off the court if you're winning. And if you have James Harden, you're
that's
gonna
also
win
where
games.
like back like when OKC first became like what they are with KD and all these guys. They always used to talk about how like these guys all love each other and they eat lunch together and they're all at the facility and this and that. And I was always just like, so?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
They didn't win anything. Like, who gives a shit?
Right. I feel like in certain scenarios that it can be a good thing for your team, but it's not like detrimental if it's not the case.
I mean, if you hate each other on the floor and don't like playing basketball together, then that's a problem.
Then it's a problem.
But if you don't like each other off the floor, you don't want to hang out with each other, you're not brothers. If you're not brothers, then it's fine. As long as on the floor, you are. I think for basketball, I don't know about other sports. I feel like in football, maybe you have to be a little closer. Like
the units,
like offensive linemen have to like be super tight, and the quarterback has to be super tight with the offensive lineman and that type of stuff. But yeah, in basketball, it's just like as long as you guys get along on the floor in practice and all that stuff, yeah, it's probably fine. Especially the way the NBA is, it's like as long as LeBron, if you're on LeBron's team, if LeBron likes you, then it doesn't matter who dislikes each other.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like the Nets, right? If Kevin Durant hated Kyrie Irving, right, see ya. Like, as long as Kevin Durant gets along with the people on the team and plays with them, then who cares?
Yeah.
It's a tier system in the NBA.
Definitely.
And there's only like 7 guys that even matter that much.
So. And James Harden's one of them. So
at this point, he probably, yeah. All right, here's my last overreaction. I still think after watching Zion for 3 games that his offensive limitations are very concerning to me. And he just so happens to have gone to a team where they're not glaring because they have one of the most talented offensive players with him, which is Brandon Ingram. And a bunch of other guys who are actually playing really, like JJ Redick's really good. Lonzo looks good. By the way, you know what's crazy? There's going to be coaches at some point that are going to teach their kids how to shoot like Lonzo Ball.
you think so?
His shot is so nice now. Like
Really?
it's like perfect looking. I've never seen a transformation like what he's done with his shot. Like it's wild to me that like at some point when college coaches or high school coaches are making like video breakdowns of like, look at how this guy shoots or look at how his shooting pocket and this and that. Like Lonzo's going to be in these shooting tapes. That's where his shot has gotten to, like just the form. But this is about Zion. he is still so like he in the half court, he can do one thing. He can drive to the left and get to the rim. That's it. I mean, he can play in pick and rolls, but like you saw it firsthand in this San Antonio game on Sunday. He was 7 of 22 from the field. And teams, now that there's tape on him and now that teams have seen what he does, it's easy to game plan and guard him. Now, it's not easy to totally shut him down because he's a freak. He'll get offensive rebounds. He'll roll to the basket. They'll get lobs. He'll get putbacks and transition buckets and that type of stuff. But in a half-court offensive setting, he doesn't do anything. If he drives to his right, he's either driving to his right to go to a handoff or pass it out, or he's going to his right to spin back to his left. In the post, no matter which block he's on, if he dribbles, makes a move to the right, it's always going to be a spin back to the left. So he can only score going to his left right now. He can't shoot. He had 0 assists in this game. He had 1 assist the game before. He is extremely, extremely, extremely limited still right now offensively. And it's concerning to me only because it's not just his shot that needs to improve. Like, all of his offense kind of needs to improve. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing that I said 2 or 3 years ago about Giannis. It's the same thing we've been saying about Ben Simmons. Like, when you're young, it's like, oh, the ceiling, and he can work on it and this and that. But when you're so far behind from an offensive skill set standpoint, I'm wondering, can he work his way to the point where he can be like a reliable second option for a team? Because I'm not sure based on how limited his offensive skill set is right now.
I mean, I think the concerns are obviously valid. It's just that, like, he hasn't even played in like 40 games. You know what I mean? That's where I'm like,
yeah,
I'm not worried.
If he's played in a game, the skill set and the amount of games are, you know, if he played in 40 games, it would still be the same skill set right now. Like, he's going to have to work on this stuff in the offseason, which sure he does.
That's when I would be 100% on board if next year.
He's so far behind though. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's the same thing with Ben Simmons. Like, he never could shoot the ball, and now he's so far behind shooting the ball that he's never going to be able to shoot the ball.
Right, but Ben Simmons has been in the league for 4 years, but I'll be 100% on board with you if next year he doesn't look markedly better in some of these things. You know, like I just want to give him more time before I'm like, I mean, I'm not saying they're not concerns, you know. I'm just saying that he could look a lot different by next year.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, then it's like, okay, shit. Like, please don't squander this unbelievable athletic ability.
Now, here's the thing. This might, and I'm not even saying this like it's a negative. Like, he's still probably going to be a 10-time All-Star, potential All-NBA player. He's going to do a lot of things. But for the hype, for being the first overall pick, for all these things, that guy, you want that guy, once again, you want that guy to be the guy who can lead you to winning a playoff series or lead you to winning a championship. I don't know if he'll be that guy, right? That doesn't mean that he's not going to be an all-star and a Hall of Famer and all that stuff, because there are plenty of those guys who weren't the main guy on a championship team. But for a guy, you know, hyped and pegged as the next big thing and all this stuff, his limitations are very concerning, because I still think when it comes down to down the line later on in the year, Steven Adams is playing really well for them. But when it comes to like big, like game winning time, their best lineup is going to be Zion at the 5 right now, because it's going to be really hard to space the floor with Zion and Steven Adams on the floor together. Like, right now, there's sets, like, I'd say a quarter of the sets that New Orleans is running right now, they're playing 4-on-5 because Zion just stands in the corner and no one cares. Like, they don't care. They care because they don't want him to get a back cut and a lob at the rim. But if he's just standing in the corner and you have your eyes, like, on ball and man and you see where he's at, he's a non-threat and you're playing 4-on-5. And that becomes an issue if you also have another guy in Steven Adams who is limited and can only score within 5 feet of the rim. So, yes, it's year 2. He really didn't play last year. Yes, he can change. I'm just saying right now, he's still really limited. There's a lot of things he can't do offensively.
I'm with you. No, I hear you. I think it's totally fair. Yeah, I just think I won't ramp up my concern until next year. In which case, I'll ramp it up twice as fast. Like I'll be like, "This is really bad," you know. But
Yeah.
I'm just going to give him that leash. I'm not saying you're not. I hear you.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, your last one was about the no fans, right?
Yeah, I'm just let's see what this final score of the Lakers game is. I'm just kind of wondering if or predicting kind of like these huge blowouts, like a 50-pointer for the Clippers. Like if we might see that a little bit more often this year because teams
Maybe
are
not
willing.
50. Maybe not 50, but
Yeah, but yeah, 35, 40-point blowouts. I'm wondering if we're going to see more of those this year because teams pack it in like I think you're less likely to give up when there's 20,000 fans that have paid a ticket and are there either cheering, booing, something like that. Whereas the total absence of that, it's just like that. Like we lost. You know, we started out 1 for 15 from 3. Screw this. Let's get on the plane. We'll get a fresh start. You know, I just see that happening more with nobody around to watch you than when you've got 20,000 fans who paid their hard-earned money. You know, are talking to you. You know, I mean, those players can hear the fans right next to him. So I'm just wondering if we're going to have an uptick in really ugly games because teams pack it in the first or second quarter and say, screw this.
that's possible. I don't think a game like Lakers T-Wolves.
Yeah, I mean, that
like
one's not
'cause it's
shocking,
in LA.
especially with Towns out.
But it's also in LA.
Yeah.
Like I guess I mean the Clippers thing could definitely be. You could
yeah,
definitely
that
probably
was just
like
too weird. 50 points by a championship contender. It's bizarre.
yeah. That's I mean that's
It's
probably
not really an overreaction. It's more of just like a
Yeah, no, that's true. It's possible. I think if you ask any athlete, they'll probably, especially in basketball, they'll tell you that, the crowd helps them. Because, when you're trying to make a run, teams they have trouble communicating on defense when the crowd's loud and all that stuff. So, yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't. So, you might be right. I don't think, probably not 50-point blowouts. But
yeah. Well,
also, one thing I will also attribute to that, there's a lot of really, really bad teams in the NBA. Like really bad NBA teams.
yeah.
So now, it just so happened that one of the 5 best teams in the NBA is the team that lost by 50. But
it's just so weird.
There are some awful teams. Actually, all the teams that got blown out today are good. So
Hold on, I got to address this comment. Thank you, Arsenal. My 76ers were terrible tonight without Joel. I feel you, man. 76ers are my team as well. That was ugly. Go back 15, 20 minutes in this episode, and you'll hear us talk
we
about
addressed
that
and basically got into how if Philly really can trade Ben Simmons for Harden after what Harden did the other night, there shouldn't be any doubts. It should be done already. But yeah, I mean, I've never, me, Alex, obviously you know me, I think. I've been really hard on Joel Embiid for a long time, but what I saw in the first couple games, if Doc has him playing that way, he could be an absolute dominant player in the league, and they're clearly not very good without him. Either they're not good without him, or Cleveland really is fucking great. But I don't think.
Yeah, it's not.
I don't
they're
think
not that. I said
I don't
Cleveland's
think-
good. They're not
I don't
that
think they're
good.
great.
No business losing by that amount to this team.
Yeah. By the way, before we wrap up, I do want to say this. The Lakers won 127-91 against Minnesota tonight. No Karl Anthony Towns. If you saw last game, he took a really hard fall. He dislocated his wrist. It's the same wrist that he had surgery on last year that ended his season, but it's, I guess, a different injury. He's out indefinitely. So, I mean, they're saying they don't think it'll be super long, but this sucks.
Yeah, this goes.
With literally last episode, we're talking about how he's the guy you want to root for this year after everything he's been through this offseason. And obviously everyone's been through a lot of stuff, but he in particular, it's very publicly reported what he's gone through. And now they started off the season looking really good. Like, he's looked great. It looks like they maybe put together the right pieces to potentially be maybe a playoff team finally for him. And now he gets hurt. And hopefully it's not as bad. I mean, I just like dislocated wrist sounds terrible.
I know. I don't even really. I've never I know you can fracture your wrist. I guess your whole hand. I don't know.
I
don't
can't
really
even
wanna think about it.
imagine
Yeah.
like I've seen fingers and shoulders. Like shoulder, you
Yeah,
you can't.
I
'Cause
understand.
shoulder, I've seen like fingers. I've seen firsthand, but like I can't even imagine a wrist. I've heard of like wrist or ankle. Like, can you imagine a dislocated ankle?
No, I mean, I think I'd rather just break it. I don't know. That just sounds horrible and gross. I'm looking at their schedule right now because I'm thinking like if he misses 10 games, like they're not good enough for them to stay, 4-6. They're probably going to lose 8 of those games.
Yeah,
And their schedule's kind of tough.
and it's and 10 less games this year.
Yeah. So they've got LA coming up. They got Washington. They played Denver twice, San Antonio twice. I mean,
Speaking of schedule, by the way, just to go back to the Warriors,
yeah.
they play the Pistons next, right?
Okay.
And then they play like 12 or 13 straight games against playoff teams.
Wow. I'm pulling it up right now.
They play like the Clippers back to back and the Blazers back to back, and they play some East
Sacramento's in there, but then other than that, I don't see.
But Sacramento's not playing bad right now.
I know.
Like,
I don't
they
see
played
many wins
bad tonight, but Sacramento's still better than the Warriors right now.
Without Draymond, yes.
So they needed this win because if they lose to the Pistons and they're 1-3 and then they go on this stretch that they're about to go on, it's over. Like they're not a playoff team. It's going to be too much. They're going to dig themselves such a hole. At some point, Steph will have an injury and probably won't play anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Although he is getting paid $40 million, so they might be like, Steph, you gotta cut this one out.
Yeah, but if they could, but imagine they get another lottery pick, another Wiseman type, not Wiseman type because obviously he's a center, but another like standout rookie to go with Steph, and Clay comes back healthy.
So you're telling me the revenge tour is just delayed 1 year, is what you're saying?
Well, it's definitely delayed. I mean, they're not getting revenge on anybody this year. In fact, it's probably the opposite. The league is getting revenge on the Warriors.
That's a good point. They're like, oh, you thought you got smacked last year? Well, here's your second helping of being the worst team in the league.
In fact, Kelly Olynyk is like a what's it called? He's like a mercenary sent by the rest of the league to ruin the Warriors.
Is that what's happening here?
Yeah. He has like an under the table deal with other teams in the league to be awful. Like they're circumventing the salary cap and just paying him double his salary to just be the worst player in the NBA this season.
Oh, Kelly Oubre. I was going to say, you said Kelly Olynyk, so I was like, what am I missing here?
Kelly Olynyk. I meant Kelly Oubre. Yeah, Kelly Oubre.
Got you. That makes a lot of sense because he's not this bad. We were raving about Kelly Oubre in the offseason.
The guy has 7 field goals and 6 of them are dunks.
Oh my God. Dude, I know PER. You know the stat P? It's like a dumb stat, but his is negative. Right? I didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah, because it's all offensive based. It's an offensive based metric.
Yeah, and it's based on like a replacement player. So they'd basically just be better.
No, it's not.
It's not. Oh,
no, that's
then how can they
value over replacement. But I probably negative because he's 0 for 17 from 3 and he's probably turned the ball over a bunch. I bet he has a negative assist to turnover ratio. Probably
turnovers got him negative. Holy shit!
He had 0 assists and 3 turnovers tonight. So Kelly Oubre, man, let me tell you something, man. It's a good looking dude, not a good looking basketball player right now.
Well said.
It's not. It's unfortunate because good looking people really need a win. You know.
Right. Yeah.
It's. They really needed one. They really needed Kelly to do this for them.
Yeah, he needs more breaks in his life. He didn't get enough breaks in the genetic lottery.
Nope. All right. That's it for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. What's the schedule tomorrow? Is it a big slate for Monday night?
I would imagine that it's not because so many of these teams are back-to-back. Let's see here. 5 games tomorrow.
What's the late game?
Lakers, Blazers. That's a good one. And that's at 10. And then Rockets, Nuggets is at 9.
Got you. All right, so we'll be back at midnight tomorrow night.
Sounds good.
All right. See you guys later. Have a good one.